Hi guys, welcome. That's again. Fourth of sorts. And Favorite K, Rencity back at it. Means this is episode 53 now. I've been doing this over a year. Whoa, that's crazy. But hey, thanks for coming along the way. It's been great. It's been fun. Let's do what we do, and like we do in every episode. Honor people that wore jerseys that coincide with the episode number. Like I said, episode 53, let's honor the people that wore 53. When I think of 53, I think Artis Gilmore. And you're like, wait, how? That's obviously before your time. But hey, I'm a big fan of NBA history. As you know, if you watch the show, listen to the show, I know of Artis Gilmore, and I know the cool fro he used to rock. Yo, I had cornrows at one point in my life. I always wanted a big fro. My hair just obviously never grew like that, you know? And Gilmore started his collegiate career at Gardner-Webb Junior College, North Carolina, playing 2 great seasons, leading that team to the NJCAA tournament. For that, he then transferred to a bigger school, Jacksonville University, to play his last 2 years in the NCAA. He'd lead the NCAA in rebounding both seasons, guiding the Dolphins to the 1970 NCAA championship game, losing to John Wooden and UCLA by 11 points. Gilmore became one of 5 college basketball players ever to average at least 20 points and 20 rebounds over his career. Yeah, 24.3 per game, 22.7 rebounds per game. His 22.7 rebounds per game is still the highest in NCAA Div 1 history. Teams knew Gilmore wanted to go to the ABA, and the Kentucky Colonels selected him 7th overall in the draft. The NBA knew this as well, but the Bulls said, "Yo, we'll draft him in the 7th round, just see what happens, down the road." Gilmore was a beast right out of the gates. He'd have that rare distinction of winning Rookie of the Year, as well as ABA MVP. During his 5 years in the ABA, Artis Gilmore made the All-Star game each year, including winning the All-Star game MVP once. He led the league in rebounding 4 of those 5 seasons and was a 4-time ABA All-Defensive First-Teamer. 75, Gilmore and teammate Dan Issel, who we honored in episode 44, would win the ABA championship. In the final, in the clinching game against the Pacers, Gilmore would score 28 points, 31 rebounds. And when the ABA disbanded and the Kentucky Colonels folded, the Bulls were able to scoop up Gilmore. And with his first season as a Bull, he led the team in scoring, rebounding, and blocks, and helping the Bulls to their best defensive points per game in the league. Gilmore would make 4 All-Star games and 5 seasons as a Bull before going to my San Antonio Spurs. They have a pretty good 1-2 punch there with George the Iceman Gervin, who he also honored in episode 44. But they could never get past the Lakers in the playoffs there. He was still a big contributor to the Spurs, making 2 final All-Star games in his career. He joined the Bulls one more time before wrapping up his career with the Celtics. He played overseas in the Italian League, even making a European All-Star team. You'd call it a career, and he's one of the underrated best big men to play. Like 6 All-Star games, 5 ABA All-Star games. His 53's retired by the University of Jacksonville. He's in the Bulls Ring of Honor. Named to the ABA All-Time team. It took some time, but Artis Gilmore was inducted to the Basketball Hall of Fame in 2011. So I'm glad that happened. We'll stick with the NBA. We'll go to another giant of the game. One of the best shot blockers the NBA ever saw. Mark Eaton. He was a big uncoordinated dude who was relegated to a backup role in his high school team despite being a massive 6'11". After graduating high school, he'd go to the Arizona Automotive Institute of Glendale and graduated to be an auto mechanic service tech. He then returned to Orange County to work on as a mechanic, and he was discovered by a chemistry professor who was also an assistant coach at Cypress College. He's like, "Yo, you got to apply to this community college and play for our team." And after his time there, the Suns would select him in the 5th round of the draft. He was eligible for 4 years. He was eligible as he was 4 years removed from high school. He opted to return to college hoops, work on his game, which he did. leading the team to a junior college title. He then transferred to UCLA and not really play much there under Larry Brown. He had trouble, picking up faster paced offenses. And after a disappointing college career where he felt at his worst, he got some advice from Wilt Chamberlain. We honored in episode 13, telling him, don't worry about all your offense game. Work more on protecting this hoop. Let the smaller guys worry about the offense. And he cited that little mentor there, that little advice to changing his career. And after, his college career didn't bring in tons of suitors, the Jazz just saw a big guy that could potentially anchor a defense, taking him in the 4th round, the 82 draft. He had worn 35 at UCLA, but that number was taken by Darrell Griffith, so he grabbed 53. That helped get him on this episode, and as a rookie, he had immediate impact, protecting the paint like it was his own family, breaking the Jazz franchise record for blocks in a limited time. His improved play helped turn the Jazz around from losers to contenders. In his 3rd NBA season, he blocked 456 shots, averaging, 5.56 blocks per game, still an NBA record. The Jazz being consistent contenders, Eaton would lead the NBA in blocks 4 out of 5 seasons. 2 of those seasons, he won Defensive Player of the Year, 3-time All-Defensive First Teamer, 2-time All-Defensive Second Teamer. 3 of the 6 highest block totals in NBA history belong to Eaton. Like, he protected the paint here. In '89, he'd make the one and only All-Star game of his career, joining teammates John Stockton from episode 12 and Karl Malone from episode 13 as the first time 3 Jazz players made the All-Star game in one season. Injuries hit him hard late in his career, and he'd retire after 11 seasons in the NBA, all played with the Utah Jazz, finishing with the highest blocks per game average in history with 3.5. And the Jazz would retire Eaton's number 53 as well. In retirement, Eaton really embraced biking, having a custom bike made for his 7'4" frame, which he would grow into, but unfortunately, in May of 2021, Eaton biked with a neighbor to go for lunch. He came home, told his wife, hey, just going on a quick bike ride, and he died in a bicycle accident about a block from his home in Utah. He was found unresponsive by a passerby and pronounced dead at the hospital. 64 years old. Just a sad way to go for one of the more unique individuals that ever laced it up in the NBA. The next 53 on our list is a lot different than the one I mentioned. Eaton was a giant, but he did not leave the ground very much. This guy, Daryl Dawkins, or Chocolate Thunder, as a nickname given by Stevie Wonder, of all people, was one of the most powerful dunkers the game has seen. He was one of the highly recruited by universities and colleges, but he opted to go straight to the NBA out of high school, becoming the first ever to do so. Led to the Sixers drafting him 5th overall. He'd have some good seasons, but could not get the NBA championship with them. And the Dawkins was moved to the Nets, where he'd have good seasons, putting in a career-high 16.8 in 83-84. But his time was getting diminished after his second back surgery, and he was traded to the Jazz, where he played just 4 games before moving to the Pistons. He was very limited at this point in his career and played more of a mentor role for the Pistons. He was on that team that won the 89 championship in 4 games over the Lakers, his only NBA championship ring. And that was really the end of his career in the NBA. He'd go play in Italy before coming back and having stints with the Harlem Globetrotters and some stints in the CBA. He'd also coach in the IBA. He coached in the Winnipeg Cyclone. He coached in the USBL, winning 2 titles before that league folded. But unfortunately, in August of 2015, Dawkins would pass away from a heart attack at the age of 58. Tons of people showing up to the funeral. He was a larger-than-life figure who put up good numbers, not Hall of Fame numbers, but pretty good ones. And it wasn't the numbers you remember with Dawkins. It was the flair, the gold chains. It was how he absolutely abused baskets, breaking basketboards, and having ridiculous names for his dunk. His first backboard breaking dunk, he called it the Chocolate Thunder Flying, Rovenzine Crying, Teeth Shaking, Glass Breaking, Rump Roasting, Bun Toasting, Wham Bam, Glass Breaker I Am Jam. See, they just don't name dunks like that anymore, probably because it takes a mouthful to say, but yeah, just a bummer. 2 totally different guys, but lost way too early. Last basketball player I'll mention here, Alton Lister. He played collegiate career going to junior college as well, like some other players here, playing 2 seasons at the San Jacinto Junior College. He transferred to Arizona State, where he'd play 2 years there. First team All Pac-10, leading the Bucks, selected on 21st overall in the '81 draft. The seven-footer put up decent numbers with the Bucks, but he was traded to the Sonics, where he'd have his best individual season. But again, he'd get traded to the Warriors, and that's probably where we most remember Alton Lister. He was involved in a very memorable play for all the wrong reasons. High-flying supersonic Sean Kemp threw down one of the most vicious dunks in NBA history. We've all seen the highlight. He throws it on Lister, pointing at him after. Real shithousery that would probably cause a fine of some sort nowadays. Feliston would return to the Bucks for playing with the Celtics and Blazers, where he'd get in the coaching after his career. He's currently coaching in the PBA, the Philippine Basketball Association, and he has his number 53 retired by the Arizona State Sun Devils. But we'll leave the basketball card here. We'll go to the baseball nine. And the first 53 that comes to everyone's mind, he was a person before my time, right-handed pitcher Don Drysdale. Great pitcher in high school, where he was high school classmates with Robert Redford. Yeah, the actor. This led to Drysdale signing with the Brooklyn Dodgers right out of high school, starting in the minor leagues, playing with the Bakersfield Indians in the California League. He'd get promoted to AAA in the International League, and then from there he'd get promoted to the Big Show. After a few productive seasons there, he, along with teammate Sandy Koufax, served some time in the Army Reserve at Fort Dix, and he said those 6 months there really put his life into perspective. And when the team moved to Brooklyn, or from Brooklyn to LA, Drysdale went with them, where they'd win 3 World Series with the Dodgers in their new home. 62, a non-World Series winning season. Drysdale would win 25 games, the highest in the MLB that season, and won the only Cy Young of his career. Drysdale would make 9 All-Star games and led the MLB in strikeouts 3 different occasions, spending his entire career with the Dodgers, and the franchise retired the number 53. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame and was a Dodger through and through, working with the broadcasting booth after retirement. He worked a game between the Dodgers and Expos at Olympic Stadium. He returned to his room. Next morning, the team's like, "Hey, where's Drysdale?" Several players broadcast team went back to the hotel, realized he wasn't there, couldn't get in the room, found him lying face down on the floor, dead. They say he was ruled a heart attack, and he had been dead for at least 18 hours until he was found. The announcement was made during a Dodgers broadcast later that day after Drysdale's family was notified. His broadcasting colleague, Vin Scully, legendary broadcaster, announced the news by saying, "Never have I been asked to make an announcement that hurts me as much as this one, and I say it to you the best I can with a broken heart." He described it as the toughest broadcast of his legendary career. A fantastic baseball life that came to an end too soon. Don Drysdale, 56 years old when he passed. Another one on this list, gone too soon. Sticking with baseball, number 53, the Venezuelan legend, Bobby Abreu. He signed as an amateur free agent with the Houston Astros, lighting up the minor leagues before getting the call up to the show. He didn't play long with the Astros before getting left unprotected in the '97 expansion draft. The Devil Rays, as they were called in Tampa Bay, selected him only just to deal him to the Phillies for a shortstop, Kevin Stalker. Some regard that as one of the most one-sided trades in history, as Abreu would light it up for the Phillies, playing some of the best baseball of his career with the club, making 2 All-Star games, winning a Gold Glove and a Silver Slugger. He'd also have good moments with the Yankees, Angels, Dodgers, and Mets, but his best were with Philly. After retirement, he'd get honored in the Phillies Wall of Fame, and he was inducted into the Venezuelan Baseball Hall of Fame. We'll go from a hitter to another pitcher. Next on the list, left-handed pitcher Zach Britton. He was selected in the 3rd round of the 2006 MLB draft by the Orioles, signing a signing bonus to sign a pro contract and skip college. He's one of the best prospects in the minor leagues as he worked on his game, initially starting as a starting pitcher before finding himself in the reliever role, which he really thrived in, with the Orioles making his first All-Star game, and the following season was probably his best. He'd make his second and final All-Star game, leading the American League in saves while winning reliever of the year. During this time, Britton set an AL record for 60 straight saves converted. Britton would have some good years during his time in Baltimore before getting dealt to the Yankees, where he'd play the final 4.5 seasons of his career. The last two 53s I'll mention are both current players, starting with Christian Walker. He'd play collegiate ball at South Carolina with the Gamecocks, where he helped them win the College World Series in 2010 and 2011. They reached the finals again in 2012, but lost, so
That led to the Orioles selecting him in the fourth round of the draft. He'd play sparingly there, where he'd get claimed by the Braves and then the Reds before getting claimed off waivers by the Diamondbacks. He'd go to the Pacific Coast League, winning MVP, leading to a call up by the Diamondbacks for good. He really blossomed into a player there, especially in the outfield. Last two seasons, he's won two Gold Glove awards, and he was a very important piece to that Diamondback squad that made it to last year's World Series, fortunately losing to the Texas Rangers. Last baseball 53 to be mentioned, Milwaukee Brewer pitcher Brandon Woodruff. Out of high school, he was drafted by the Rangers in the 2011 draft. However, he didn't sign. He decided to go to Mississippi State to play college ball. And after his junior year, the Brewers drafted him, and he joined. And he got called up in 2017. He got injured. He went back to the minors. Following year, he'd get called up again, and he'd be up for good. And he's rocked the 53 the whole time with the Brewers, making two All-Star appearances. And just a few weeks ago, despite potentially missing most of the 2024 season following right surgery to his shoulder, he resigned with the Brewers on a 2-year deal with an option for a third, so he'll be sticking around there. We'll leave the baseball dime and go to the NFL. Legendary Giants linebacker Harry Carson stand out at South Carolina State, putting up big numbers, leading the Giants selecting him in the fourth round of the 76 NFL draft. A beast right out of the gate. All rookie team honors, spending all 13 of his seasons with the Giants. That linebacking group they had with Carson, Van Pelt, Brian Kelly, and Lawrence Taylor, they were called the Crunch Bunch. And he was part of the tough Giants defenses known as the Big Blue Wrecking Crew, back when everybody had nicknames. To be a good defensive back then, you needed a nickname, and especially if it rhymed, right? They'd stand out on that terrific defense. 9 Pro Bowls for him, 2 first-team All-Pros, 4 second-team. He's part of the Super Bowl 21 winning Giant teams that pounded the Broncos. Harry Carson was honored by the Giants when he entered their Ring of Honor, and he was inducted into the College Football and Pro Football Halls of Fame. Next up, another great linebacker, Randy Gradishar. He was a standout linebacker at Ohio State, putting up huge numbers, racking up tons of tackles. Consensus All-American and unanimous All-American his senior year, leading to the Broncos selecting him 14th overall in the first round of the 74 draft. Halfway through his season, Gradishar would become the starter. In the third season, he'd make his first Pro Bowl. And then a few seasons later, he'd make the Pro Bowl again and make his first team All-Pro for the first time. Following season, he'd get all those accolades as well as Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, he'd make another 4 Pro Bowls and 3 second-team All-Pros. Some say Randy Gradishar was the best player on those legendary Orange Crush Broncos defenses. Some regard him as the best linebacker they ever seen, but that's what made it so weird why he wasn't into the Hall of Fame. But that's changing, though. Just weeks ago, Gradishar was inducted into the Hall of Fame and will be honored later this year at a ceremony for new inductees. He's already in the Broncos Ring of Fame. His great play at Ohio State got him inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame, where he's also in the Ohio State All-Century team, as well as their Ohio State Varsity Hall of Fame. So, fantastic career for a guy who I knew a little bit about after the Pro Bowl nomination induction. By reading more about him, it's just wow. It's weird how this guy hasn't been talked about more. We'll leave the defensive side of the ball, go to the offensive line. The next 53 on our list is a center, Mick Tingelhoff. Dope name, too. He didn't have the most direct path to the NFL. He didn't play college ball at the university. Well, he played college ball at the University of Nebraska, but not a lot. He wasn't a starter until his senior season. He was co-captain of that team, and it had its biggest output in 5 seasons, making when he was a starter, making you wonder why he didn't start more. After university, he went undrafted, probably because he didn't play much. And the Minnesota Vikings signed him as a free agent. He'd become the starting center his rookie season and held that spot till he retired in '78, spending the entirety of his career with the Vikings, putting up big numbers over his career. 6 Pro Bowls, 5 first-team All-Pros, 1 second-team. He was named one of the 50 greatest Vikings, just behind Eric the Red, and was named to the 25th and 40th Minnesota Vikings anniversary teams. He was honored by the Vikings Ring of Honor, and his 53 is retired by the franchise. He set the NFL record for most consecutive starts by a lineman with 240. Tingelhoff would also get inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Unfortunately, in 2021, he passed away at the age of 81. We'll stick with centers. Number 53, Mark Stepnoski. The Pennsylvania native went on to play college ball at the University of Pittsburgh, where he played guard on the offensive line, earning consensus All-American his senior season. Cowboys selected him in the third round of the '89 draft. Scouts said he dropped because he was a little undersized for his position. The Cowboys switched him to center, and he thrived, using his athleticism and leverage to outmaneuver bigger defensive players. He was a staple of one of the greatest offensive lines in history with the Cowboys, making 3 straight Pro Bowls, getting named to a first team and second team All-Pro, was a crucial member of 2 Super Bowl winning teams, helping Emmitt Smith on his way to becoming the NFL's leading rusher. After the '94 season, Stepnoski was one of the big names to leave the Cowboys after their title wins. He joined the Houston Oilers and keep his Pro Bowl streak going from Dallas, reaching 5 consecutively. He'd also make the final second-team All-Pro of his career there. He'd be part of the Oilers' relocation to Tennessee as they became Titans, and he then returned to the Cowboys to wrap up his career. A fantastic center who had a great peak, named to an NFL 1990s All-Decade team, and was named to the Pennsylvania All-Century team for his collegiate contributions. He's been a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but still hasn't been inducted as of now. Final number 53 NFL mention. We're going back to the offensive line. We're giving the offensive line here some love. Another center, Ray Donaldson, a standout at Georgia, earning All-SEC and third-team All-American his senior season. This led to the Baltimore Colts drafting him in the second round of the 1980 draft. He'd spend more time on special teams than offense. And in his second season, he was named the starting center. And in 1981, it was believed that he was named the first African-American center in NFL history. He'd make 4 Pro Bowls with the Colts, including 1 second-team All-Pro. He was released by the Colts in '93, and at the age of 35, he'd end up signing with the Seattle Seahawks, who were then in the AFC, and anchored an offensive line that led the AFC in rushing for the first time in franchise history. He helped running back Chris Warren rank first in the AFC with 1,545 yards. With the before-mentioned Mark Stepnoski leaving the Cowboys, the Cowboys replaced him with Donaldson. He was the NFL's oldest starting center until suffering a broken right ankle, and he'd end up missing Super Bowl 30 run. The Cowboys won, and Donaldson still got his ring. He'd return to Dallas for 1 more season before retiring, but he had a career resurgent with the Cowboys, earning 2 more Pro Bowls, bringing his career to 6. An underrated center who I think deserves to be talked more, so I'm glad we were able to shout him out in this episode. We'll wrap up the 53 jersey segment while I head into the hockey ranks, starting with Jeff Skinner. The guy was a beast with the Kitchener Rangers of the OHL, becoming the first Ranger in 23 years to reach the 23-goal milestone, leading to the Carolina Hurricanes selecting Skinner 7th overall in the 2010 draft. Killing it right out of the gate, named to the All-Star game as a replacement his rookie season. As the 18-year-old was the youngest, or he was the first 18-year-old to play in the All-Star game since Yzerman, and is the youngest to ever play in the game. That was almost broken this season when Connor Bedard was named to the team but couldn't participate because of that fractured jaw. The rookie season would end with Skinner winning the Calder Trophy for Best Rookie. He's dealt with some injuries in Carolina, a lot of concussions. He was traded to the Sabres, and in his first season there, he scored a career-high 40 goals. Making the second All-Star game of his career. He was with the Sabres just until we'll get more into, or he's still with the Sabres here, but he has this unfortunate record right now where he's played the most games without a playoff appearance. He is now up to 989 and counting. It's not looking like the Sabres are going to make the playoffs this season, so I think that number will continue to rise. He broke the record that was previously held by Ron Hainsey, who had the record at 907 games. One more to mention, the last 53 on our list, former NHL defenseman Derek Morris. Morris played with the Regina Pats in the WHL just a few hours away, which led to the Calgary Flames drafting him 13th overall in the 96 entry draft. Many were surprised with the pick. They thought he dropped to the 3rd or even 4th round. Didn't expect him to go in the 1st. He returned to the Pats before getting assigned to the Calgary Flames AHL affiliate, the St. John Flames. He joined the Calgary franchise following season, had a fantastic rookie season, earning all rookie honors. During the 01-02 season, while still with the Flames, he was unintentionally involved in one of the most tragic incidents that have ever occurred at a hockey game. Against Columbus Blue Jacket Espen Knutson slapshot directed off Morris into the stands. striking a 13-year-old Brittany Cecil in the temple. She died from the impact 2 days later, prompting the NHL to implement protective nets at the ends of rinks in the start of the following season. Just terrible, but now when you see nets at the end, this is why. This was the final straw here. But yeah, he was traded to the Avalanche where he had an immediate impact, having his best statistical season. He'd get traded to the Coyotes where he'd play 4.5 seasons. He'd move on to play with the Rangers and Bruins before ending it up with the Coyotes. He represented Canada in international hockey and was a member of the 2004 World Championship team that won a gold medal. Pretty solid defender, Derek Morris. I don't know if worthy of that pick, so maybe the prospects or the scouts were right on that one. Wow, that was a lengthy segment for 53. Bet you didn't even know a lot of those 53 players, but that's why we do it here. That's why Rencity does it. Wow, we'll go to the week that was and the week that's continuing to happen. So much was even happening before I was recording this. So we're going to start in the NFL here. Like, what? That league's not even going on. But there's been some crazy stuff going on. Whether it is for salary cap purposes, whether it is to try and propel your team to a Super Bowl. Some of the wildest news I saw. Denver Broncos, right? They cut Russell Wilson. They said, we're done with you, taking a huge tab to pay for him. So what does he do? It's reported Russell Wilson is becoming a Pittsburgh Steelers on a 1-year deal on a discount too. So it'll be very interesting because, everybody's already doubted Wilson, saying he doesn't have it in the tank. Pittsburgh, Tomlin has never missed the playoffs there. So you think he's getting into the playoffs. They got a new offense coordinator, Arthur Smith, coming in. He was recently fired by the Falcons. A lot of pressure on Wilson, a lot of pressure on Smith. We'll see what happens. That's very exciting. And, we'll speak of the Falcons, Arthur Smith's former team. Big news for them, signing former Minnesota Viking Kirk Cousins, the star of the quarterback show on Netflix. He tore his Achilles, and, he's 35. He's not much younger than me. And you're like, what more can he do? But one thing Kirk Cousins is good at is putting the ball into the star's hands. He's usually pretty good at that in Atlanta. They got a lot of them. So that one really intrigued me. We'll see where his health is at. That's obviously the biggest thing. If he can't play, it's not really that good. But if he can play, ooh, look out, Atlanta. But like I said, just for the recording, lots of stuff coming in. We're doing it as we go here. This isn't CNN by any means. And I'm just glad I didn't click record yet. I see it's still recording, which is good. I'm not talking to no one. It's Saquon Barkley. He's leaving the Giants, and I don't think he ever felt he was getting the respect with the Giants. So he's smacking the Giants on the way out as he goes to their rivals, NFC East rivals, Philadelphia Eagles. What a deal that is. 3-year, $37.75 million deal. Huge news. Like, wow. The last thing I saw before I put my phone down, I had to add one more line. This line. My Green Bay Packers, make a huge change at running back, releasing dynamic running back Aaron Jones. You're like, what? Why would they do that? Hold on. Signing former Raider Josh Jacobs. We're not bringing Brandon Jacobs from the Giants. Josh Jacobs, former Raiders running back. He's a beast of a running back. He's a workhorse. I'm still undecided on this move, but usually with Jacobs, you're getting durability. You're getting workhorse. Aaron Jones has been hurt a bunch, and sometimes the best ability is availability. Maybe that's the way the Packers are looking at it. We'll see what happens, though. I like Jacobs, though. I think he's going to work well with Jordan Love. We'll see what happens. And, we'll see. Anyway, enough of the Packers stuff there. In other news, Cincinnati Bengals star wide receiver T. Higgins requesting a trade from the team just days after being franchise tagged. 25-year-old's looking for somewhere else, maybe looking for some more money. Little column A, little column B. We'll stick with wide receivers. Buffalo Bills receiver Gabe Davis giving up the cold days and people jumping through tables, the Bills Mafia, for Florida Heat. I can't really blame him. He's joining the Jaguars on a 3-year deal. Super Bowl champions, Kansas City Chiefs, giving Chris Jones a 5-year contract, including $95 million guaranteed. You saw how the Super Bowl ended. The very important piece of that team, showing the importance of the defensive tackle in this league, people in the division, the Raiders, Las Vegas Raiders, said, you know what, we need a good defensive tackle. So they went across the country and took former Dolphin Christian Wilkins and signed him to a 4-year, $110 million deal. So, like I said, people picking up big moves, and then you have other teams going the salary cap dump route, clearing up some space here. But the Bills releasing former Pro Bowlers, Tre'Davious White, Jordan Poyer, Mitchell Morse, all former Pro Bowlers, all no longer on the team. Baltimore Ravens made a move. They had to make this one, I think. Keeping defensive star Justin Madubuike, 4-year, $98 million deal. He's a star, young guy. They got to keep him. Bears are spending money, and it's looking pretty good now. Money well spent anyway. Jalen Johnson, 4-year, $76 million deal. 24-year-old was named to his first Pro Bowl last season. It's also said the Bears are signing former All-Pro safety Kevin Byard on a 2-year contract. And the offense got some help too. The Bears signing DeAndre Swift from the Eagles on a 3-year deal. When that one came out first, I was like, why are the Eagles letting DeAndre Swift go? And then when you saw the Barkley thing, you're like, now it makes sense. Baker Mayfield, he went out on a 1-year deal, and he earned this contract, a 3-year, $100 million deal to stick around in Tampa Bay. That was all on him. He led that team, and he earned that. Other moves, you have the Broncos trading Jerry Jeudy to the Cleveland Browns for a 5th and 6th round pick. I'm sure Steve Smith, former receiver, doesn't even think he's worth that. The New England Patriots cleared up any quarterback controversy they have going right now. Mac Jones getting shipped off to the Jaguars for a late round pick. Maybe this is time we see a former CFL standout, Nathan Rourke, stand up. Maybe he'll take over New England. There's some Canadian fans just over the border that have seen him play. But we'll go to actual leagues that are playing right now. The Champions League went on the midweek. Half of the second leg of round 16 matches went down, deciding who's going to the quarterfinals. I made some predictions on who I thought was going to advance, and for the most part, it came out almost right to fruition. I mean, they were pretty easy calls. PSG went on the road to face Real Sociedad. 2 goals by Kylian Mbappe. The Parisian side up 4-0 on aggregate. Marino added a late goal for the Spanish side to, get something on the board, but PSG won it 4-1 on aggregate, advancing. And this is the one I had concern about, Bayern Munich and Lazio, Bayern Munich was hosting the Italian side, but they were down 1-0 on aggregate. But the Bavarian Giants said, don't worry about us here. First half stoppage time goal by Thomas Mueller would double the goal after Harry Kane had opened the scoring 8 minutes prior. Kane would then add another goal in the second half as Bayern come down from 1-0 on aggregate to win 3-1 on aggregate, advancing in the quarterfinals. Man City hosted Copenhagen the second leg of their matchup, up 3-1 on aggregate coming in. They'd mimic that performance, winning again 3-1. All the goals in the first half. Akanji, Alvarez, and Haaland scored for City, while Mohamed El Younisi scored for the Danish side. Man City winning 6-2 on aggregate and advancing. Real Madrid was hosting German side RB Leipzig with a 1-0 lead on aggregate. Leipzig was getting some good chances but could not score. The second half, Real Madrid would open the scoring when Jude Bellingham, perfect pass to Vinicius Jr., and he'd find the back of the net, doubling the Spanish Giants' lead on aggregate. But not even 3 minutes later, Willy Orban would head the ball into the back of the net, tying the match at 1 and making it 2-1 on aggregate, making it kind of interesting to the end. But Real Madrid would hold on and advance to the quarterfinals with 2-1 on aggregate. So this week we'll find out which other 4 clubs will be advancing to the quarterfinals in the Champions League. And there's some juicy matchups. Tuesday, my birthday, Arsenal host Portuguese giants Porto, with Porto up 1-0 on aggregate. A lot of pressure on Arsenal there to advance in this tournament, as well as deal with the Premier League title race. So a lot going on in Mikel Arteta's mind. The other Tuesday matchup features last year's La Liga winners Barcelona hosting last year's Serie A winners Napoli. This one's all squared up at 1, and it should be an exciting one as well, with the Italian side visiting Spain in this deciding fixture. Wednesday, there are some big matchups too, though. Dortmund hosts Dutch side PSV. That tie is all even on 1 on aggregate. And the other round of 16 match has La Liga side Atletico Madrid hosting last year's Champions League runners-up, Inter Milan. The Italian side has a 1-0 league on aggregate and some exciting times as we wrap up this stage of the Champions League and find out who's going to the quarterfinals. Europa League, the younger sibling of the Champions League, had the first legs of their round of 16 matches go down, with the second legs immediately coming up this week, starting Thursday. Well, wrapping up Thursday. We'll know who's going to the quarterfinals after Thursday. Portuguese side Sporting hosted Italian side Atalanta and played to a 1-1 draw. Both goals coming in the first half. Another Portuguese side, Benfica, hosted Scottish side Rangers, and they played to a draw as well. A second half own goal equalized the game for Benfica as that ended 2-2. My West Ham went into Germany to take on Freiburg, and the Bundesliga side used some pinpoint passing to find Michael Gregoritsch, who easily found the back of the net, giving Freiburg the 1-0 home win. Some big blowouts, too, and that's something that could make for some lackluster second legs this week. Serie A side Roma hosted Premier League club Brighton and smashed them 4-0. Liverpool went on the road to take on Czechia side Sparta Praha and dismantled them 5-1. And then another Czechia team, Slavia Praha, went on the road to take on Italian side AC Milan. Praha would go down a man in the 26th minute when Diouf was given a straight red card, which really opened up the game, and Milan would win 4-2. French side Marseille would host Spanish club Villarreal and beat them soundly 4-0. I jokingly said last episode that maybe the small Azerbaijan side of Karabag could give Bundesliga club Leverkusen their first loss in their historic undefeated season in all competitions. And for a while, it was looking like this could happen. In first half stoppage time, Juninho was going on a one-on-one with the keeper. A lovely move where he just kind of scooped the ball, skipped it over the sliding goalie's legs before burying it, having the crowd in a total frenzy, giving them a 2-0 lead going into the halftime break. And I don't know what Xabi Alonso did. His calmness really showed here. First, Florian Wirtz would go and score for Leverkusen, shushing the crowd. And they kept the pressure up. They just couldn't get that tying goal. But then in stoppage time, substitute Patrick Schick would shit on the fans by getting a last touching goal, putting it into the net, tying the game up at 2, keeping Leverkusen's unbeaten status safe for another day. Amazing drama in the Europa League. Can't believe that. I mean, like I said, second leg of these matches taking place this upcoming Thursday. No midweek action in the Premier League. It all kicked off on the weekend. Rivals Man U hosting Everton. They hate each other. Everton was looking the more dangerous team to start the game. But then United youngster Garnacho would tease Tarkowski in the poking out a leg, tripping the young Argentine, giving United a penalty opportunity. Bruno Fernandes would step up to the spot and put it away, giving United a 1-0 lead after 12 minutes. Later in the half, Garnacho get back on that train and he'd do some dancing, getting takedown in the box again, this time by Godfrey. Another penalty chance for United. But rather than have Fernandes take it again, they threw Marcus Rashford out there. Different taker, same result. United would get up 2-0. They'd hold on for the win. I mean, if you take away those two penalties, a draw would have seemed fair. But hey, that's the way the cookies crumble sometimes. Wolves played well at home, holding on for a 2-1 win over Fulham. Arsenal went up early in the London derby with Brentford, with Declan Rice scoring on a lovely header. It looked like they'd go into half-time with a 1-0 lead following a very dominant half. However, little-used English keeper Aaron Ramsdale would take his sweet time before clearing the ball, and Brentford striker Wissa would pressure the keeper, slide tackling it, deflecting it off him and ricocheting into the net, tying things at 1 going into the break, sucking all the excitement out of the home crowd, replacing it with frustration. The commentators would continue to emphasize that this is why Ramsdale has been replaced in the regular starting 11 by David Raya. And as the game went on, you could feel the uneasiness in the crowd. And, a draw would really hurt Arsenal's chances of getting in that title race. But you could hear a collective sigh of relief combined with jubilation as Kai Havertz met across with his head, finding the back of the net, putting Arsenal ahead again, and this time for good. So they win 2-1. Aston Villa hosted Tottenham in a very important matchup with two teams looking for that number 4 spot, hoping to get Champions League play. First half was scoreless, but then Tottenham would score 2 goals in 3 minutes. Sarr delivered a perfect cross where James Maddison would find the back of the net. Then some Tottenham pressure combined with Villa complacency led to Brennan Johnson scoring and making it 2-0. Frustration would set in for Villa, and their captain, John McGinn, would show that frustration. Brutal foul, triggering a red card. And once Villa went down a man, Tottenham, they went to step on the jugular, adding 2 more goals, one by Son and one by Timo Werner, demolishing Villa 4-0. Brighton would lose the Nottingham Forest with the only goal of the match being a scruffy one where Brighton had a free kick in a dangerous position and Pascal Gross went to just send it into the box with pace. And the keeper misplayed it. It was a very gross attempt, whiffing on the catch, knocking it into his own net for an own goal. Brighton would win 1-0 with that. The other matches of the weekends all ended in draws. Crystal Palace went out in the 11th minute with an awesome back heel by Mateta. Home side looked to have it locked up to the 6th minute of stoppage time when a cross in the box, redirected by Collie Woodrow, and Luton Town tied it up with basically the last touch of the match. Bottom of the league, Sheffield United were flying on cloud 9 after the Bournemouth keeper Neto made his second misplay of the match and again leading to a goal. In the first half, it was Gustavo Hammer who knocked in an easy rebound after Neto saved it. In the 64th minute, off a corner, Jack Robinson put the goal in to make it 2-0. That second goal really woke up Bournemouth. Solanke would score, but VAR said, still 2-0. But then another goal was coming, and it was inevitable. Watera would unleash a powerful header, cutting the league in half, and then deep in the stoppage time, Enes Unal got his first goal for Bournemouth since coming over in the transfer window, equalizing in the 91st minute and crushing the spirit of Sheffield United fans. That game ended in a draw. The visitors were up 2-0. Less than 30 minutes to go, and all he could do was muster a draw, but I guess maybe that's why they're near the bottom of the league. We'll stick with fellow basement dwellers, Burnley. They were in London to take on my West Ham. They didn't look like basement dwellers in this one. 11 minutes in, Fofana unleashed a rocket and went top corner, putting them up. Club's first goal in 326 minutes of football. Then the first half stoppage time, a Burnley low cross was deflected into the West Ham net by our own defender, Mavropanos, doubling the visitors' lead going into halftime. I don't know what Moyes said at halftime, but it must have worked a bit. Seconds into the second half, Burnley coughed it up. Just a bad giveaway. Lucas Paqueta picked it up, cut the lead in half with a goal. And they were just cranking up the pressure. Moyes actually was making changes, sending Danny Ings in to add more attacking in the game. Looked like a perfect sub as Antonio chested the ball down to Ings, who put it in, but they called Antonio offside. You're like, oh, West Ham, no. But the increased pressure was coming. When Danny Ings would get a pass from Kudus, the Ghanaian would make a wonderful move, finding Ings, who did a chest and a turn, find the net, just like he's done his whole career. 91st minute, tying the game up. Ings would look to score again, hit the crossbar, and then this was just a wild ending. Antonio, who's great at throwing a deep throw-in, threw it in. It looked like a handball by Burnley. No call, and while everyone was bitching, Burnley went the other way, and they should have scored, but Areola made the save. It was, what an ending for a 2-2 ending. God damn, that shit was wild. But the marquee matchup of the weekend, Liverpool-Man City, 2 title contenders throwing down. The crowd was getting into it early, and it looked like Liverpool went ahead, but VAR, offsides. Minutes later, Man City took a quick corner kick, and John Stones went to the near post, beating the keeper, putting them up 1-0, 23 minutes in. Early in the second half, a dreadful back pass by Nathan Ake. I do not know what he was doing. Led to Ederson fouling Darwin Nunez in the box, giving up a penalty where Alexis McAllister would step up, converting from the spot, tying the game at 1 after 50 minutes, and literal injury to insult. Man City keeper Edison would have to get suspended from the game, getting replaced with Stefan Ortega, who I gotta admit played pretty well coming in. For a big game like that coming into Liverpool, got to give him pressure, because as dangerous as Liverpool was, they were the more dangerous of the two. The teams each had chances, and it would end 1-1, which was very big for Arsenal fans, which we'll get to later in a bit here. One match left in the match week that's going down today, like probably right now, Chelsea and Newcastle. That should be a fun one with 2 of the biggest spenders around. During the midweek, there'll be a makeup game between Bournemouth and Luton Town. try to get teams all up on even matches played, which will totally get messed up next weekend as the FA Cup fixtures return. We got quarterfinal fixtures coming up, so that'll delay some of those Premier League games. They'll have to get moved to another day. But these quarterfinal matchups, it's mostly Premier Leagues, but we have two championship sides involved as well. Wolves host championship side Coventry. Chelsea holds championship leaders Leicester City, who are hoping to get promoted to the Premier League. Man City hosts Newcastle, another battle of big spenders. Then one of the classic rivalries, Man U and Liverpool. Always hyped for footy, but those should be some good ones there. And before we get too far away here, looking at the Premier League table, tight race at the top. Arsenal-Liverpool tied on points with the Gunners, owning a tiebreaker because of a better goal differential. Man City 1 point behind them in third spot. That is as tight as you can get there. Villa have a 2-point lead over Tottenham, who had closed the gap with that thrashing they just gave Villa, and Tottenham have a game in hand. So very tight race near the top of the league. No Spanish top flight games during the midweek, so we only had La Liga matches on the weekend. The weekend opened up with Barcelona rocking the jersey here because they were saved again by a 16-year-old prodigy, Lamine Yamal. He would score the only goal of the match, and what a goal. The teenager clinched it with a curler to give them the 1-0 win over Mallorca. Valencia hosted Getafe, and it was a first half goal by Hugo Doro, and that'd be enough for the home side to take the 1-0 win. Relegation battling Cadiz hosted Atletico Madrid. Home side caught the favorites off guard, and Wami would score the opening goal with a header. Things really got out of hand when the Atletico defender really mistimed his jump, and Wami would jump on the ball, getting his second of the match, putting Cadiz ahead 2-0, and that's how they'd hold on, really helping their chances to stay in the top division while hurting Atletico's chase for European footy next season. Granada hosted Real Sociedad in an entertaining bout. Twice Granada would go ahead, and twice Sociedad would equalize. After Robin Lenormand tied the game at 2, Andre Silva would score not even 5 minutes later to put the visitors ahead for the first time. It was called offside, but VAR overturned and helped Sociedad in this instance, giving them the 3-2 win. Girona picked up a one-sided 2-0 victory at home over Osasuna, and Donny Gorosabal would chip the keeper on a one-on-one before halftime to give Alaves a 1-0 lead over Rayo Vallecano. It looked like they might equalize in the dying moments, causing a huge save by the Alaves keeper. And then Falco had a chance to tie it, and he nailed the crossbar from point blank. It was brutal. So big win for Alaves there as they distance themselves from the relegation zone. Athletic Bilbao would go on the road and beat Las Palmas 2-0. Real Madrid hosted Celta Vigo, and after an early Madrid goal by Vinicius Jr., it was pretty close. But then the 17th minute, 2 Celta own goals, followed by an Arda Güler goal, made the game 4-0 in the span of 15 minutes. So big win for Real Madrid. Real Betis hosted Villarreal in an exciting bout that featured goals and tempers, and kind of crying there. Betis would go ahead through Guido Rodriguez, but Alex Baena would equalize. Then William Jose would put Betis ahead again before halftime. But Villarreal would get 2 goals in the second half and take the lead for the first time. Then the game would lose 2 players as Ezequiel Avila and Villarreal's Alberto Marino got into it, and like fake tapping and pretending someone hit you. It was embarrassing. They'd each finish with 10 men, and Villarreal held on for the big road win. Almeria playing Sevilla probably right now to finish off the match week. So you look at the table, Real Madrid still sitting atop La Liga, 7-point lead over second place Girona. Barcelona only 1 point behind Girona in the third place position. A little bit of a bigger gap to that 4th spot where Atletico Madrid have it, with Athletic Bilbao just 2 points back, making up some ground this week. Go to Germany, the Bundesliga, the weekend starting with Stuttgart hosting Union Berlin. Early in the match, the ball would come to Girassi, who has had boots of fire lately, getting the ball smashing into the net, giving Stuttgart the 1-0 lead 19 minutes in. The home sides would dominate and add a second goal in the 65th minute when Chris Furyk would curl a beauty in. Union Berlin would go to man down just 4 minutes later, and Stuttgart walked away with a 2-0 win. Leipzig would host basement dwellers Darmstadt, and it was as you'd expect. Leipzig would force an own goal just 3 minutes in. Then Christoph Baumgartner would add a second just 5 minutes into the second half as Leipzig took the big 2-0 win and hurt Darmstadt's part in any relegation battle they're trying to have. Augsburg hosted Heidenheim and controlled most of that game, winning 1-0 through a Jeffrey Guilia goal in the 22nd minute. Probably the craziest game of the weekend was between Mönchengladbach and Köln. Köln scored just 7 minutes into the game. If the home side would equalize, we'd have a 1-1 game going into halftime. Then in a span of 15 minutes, you get 4 goals. Köln would go ahead when Farid Aliadou would score a header off a free kick, his second of the match. And not even being on the pitch a minute, substitute Robin Hack would tie the game with a header. 2 minutes later, Hack would get his second of the game and put Mönchengladbach ahead. Köln substitute Damian Downs would tie the game for the third time with like his first 2 touches of the game. So you'd have a 3-3 game with people just showing up off the bench to say what's up. Freiburg would follow up their win over West Ham midweek by going on the road and beating Bochum 2-1. Bayern would play really well after their European bout this week as well. They beat Lazio midweek and they dominated Mainz this weekend, winning 8-1. Harry Kane scored a hat-trick. Goretzka had a brace. Thomas Mueller, Jamal Musiala, and Sergei Gnabry each scored. Gnabry scoring coming back from injury. This is the Bayern we're used to seeing. First half goals by Dortmund's Daniel Malin and Jadon Sancho, who made a nice little move before scoring. They were able to hold on for the 2-1 win over Werder Bremen. Justin Najima was the one that scored to make it interesting there, but like I said, Dortmund held on. Eintracht Frankfurt would host Hoffenheim. The visitors jumped out to an early lead when John Brooks put Hoffenheim ahead, but then shit got wild. The last-ditch tackle by a Hoffenheim defender led to a red card. Frankfurt would get an advantage and equalize soon after a Robin Koch goal. Then minutes into the second half, Frankfurt would take the lead, and then Mario Götze would put it away, giving a 3-1 win. Hoffenheim would get another red card in that one, go down to 9 men to wrap that up. Big 3-1 win for Frankfurt in that win. Leverkusen wrapped up the weekend with a home match win over Wolfsburg. The visitors had not helped themselves when Moritz Jens picked up his second yellow card early, putting Wolfsburg's a man down, and that gave the favorites an even bigger advantage. Grimaldo, who's been absolutely amazing for the club, had a wonderful cross get knocked in by Tella in the 37th. Then in the 86th, Wirtz, who's been on a scoring streak as well, would ice the game, giving them a 2-0 win as Leverkusen still unbeaten in all competitions. So you look at the Bundesliga table, obvious Leverkusen undefeated still, 10-point gap over Bayern Munich in second. Stuttgart sit 4 points behind Bayern in third, and Dortmund are in fourth, having a 1-point lead over Leipzig in that Champions League spot. More Bundesliga next weekend, obviously, but there is a make-up game for the Pokal Cup in Germany. Third-tier side Saarbrücken, hoping to keep their Cinderella run going, hosting Mönchengladbach in the last quarterfinal in the German Cup. As mentioned on episodes prior, this match was postponed to a water-soaked pitch, and the winner of this fixture will advance to the semifinals to take on second division 1 FCK in the semifinals, which will be in April. So that takes us to Italy. We had some good matches in the Italian top division, the Serie A. Napoli hosted Torino, and despite dominating most of the game, they get a 1-1 draw here. Napoli star Kvaratskhelia put the home side ahead, igniting a run and finishing a give and go, only for a Torino substitute to equalize on a wonderful overhead kick. It is really nice. It's like his first touch of the match. Beautiful bicycle kick by Antonio Sanabria. And yeah, the game would end 1-1. Sassuolo hosted Frosinone, and Christian Storstedt second half goal was enough to give the home side the 1-0 win. Great play by Bologna. They were hosting title favorites Inter Milan, and they were looking really good, even looking the better of the two teams at times. In the 37th minute, though, a wonderful cross found a wide-open Bissek at the back post. His header beat the keeper and made it 1-0, and that's how it would go with Inter Milan holding on. With, like I said, Bologna looking like a really good team. Cagliari distanced themselves from the basement in that relegation battle, sitting when they took on Salernitana over the weekend. High-scoring affair with Cagliari winning 4-2, back-to-back wins for the club as they are unbeaten in their last 4. Monza went on the road to take on Genoa and would rely on a 79th minute Daniel Maldini goal to be the difference maker in their 3-2 road victory. Verona's 17th minute along the ground from distance goal, it was perfectly placed by Michael Fulleranzo, was the difference maker in their win over Lecce. AC Milan hosted Empoli, and a 40th minute deflected shot by American Christian Pulisic found the back of the net. It was initially called offside, by VAR said, American, you get the goal. He's been great for Milan this season. We had two big bouts in the Serie A that would end in draw. Juventus hosted Atalanta in a great game. Coop Miners would get a goal in the first half to put Atlanta ahead in the first at the break. Andrea Cambiasso would equalize in the second half, and 4 minutes later, Milik would put Juventus ahead. Both assisted by another American, Weston McKennie. Americans playing great in the Serie A this season. But not to be outdone by that goal, less than 5 minutes, Coop Miners would get his brace and tie the game at 2. A fun game that rightfully probably deserved to end in a 2-2 draw. Doesn't help Juventus in their title chase, and the league is looking more and more to be going to Inter. But we'll get some more of that in a second. Fiorentina hosted Roma in another great game. Luca Ranieri putting the home side ahead just 18 minutes in, but Husa Maiore would equalize for Roma in the 58th. But Fiorentina would go back ahead when Rolando Mandagora would score in the 69th, and they looked to have it won. But Diego Llorente would score in the 5th minute of stoppage time to preserve the point for Roma. An amazing ending to a game. And Roma, yeah, they've looked like they lost that, but they came back. Lazio's hosting Udinese, who, like I said, is probably going on right now. But we'll look at the Serie A table. I mentioned how Inter is kind of running away with this thing. They have a 16-point lead over second place AC Milan. Juventus just 1 point behind AC Milan in third place. And Bologna, they've been playing good ball here. They're in fourth despite that loss to Inter, but that could loom larger as Roma are now just 3 points behind Bologna for that last Champions League spot. Roma have really turned it up since sacking Jose Mourinho and replacing him with Daniel De Rossi. We'll wrap up big European footy here by going to France. The weekend started with Nice losing at home to Montpellier 2-1. Another tough result for Nice. They're now winless in their last 6 league matches. They're now dropped out of a European spot. Lyon would go on the road, score 2 second-half goals, take a 2-0 win over Lorient. Lens hosted Brestois in a feisty game that looked like it could go either way, but a 32nd minute goal by Ruben Aguiar would prove to be the difference, as Lens would hold on for the win. Metz would host Clermont-Foot in a relegation battle fixture with a lot on the line. Late in the first half, Metz would get a penalty, and Georges Mikatsa would step up and bury it, giving Metz the lead, an eventual 1-0 win. Massive win for the club. Monaco went on the road and would finally get their goal in the 72nd minute when Seguier would find the back of the net. Le Havre would get a 60th minute goal by Christopher Operi to give the home side a surprising win over Toulouse. Marseille's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang would keep up his scoring prowess with a brace and a big 2-0 home win over Nantes. In a game filled with first-half goals, PSG would host Reims, the game finishing 2-2. Rennes would go on the road to take on Lille. Despite Lille looking the better team, it would be the visitors would have to lead. Blas would score not even a minute into the match, and then Callum Wendo would score in the 20th minute to give Rennes lots of confidence in this one. Then the 84th minute, Canadian Jonathan David would get a pass and finish wonderfully to cut the lead in half. Then the second minute to stoppage time, Canadian would get his second. A great save by the keeper, but the ball came to David, who would finish clinically, tying the game at 2 and preserving the point for Lille. So we look at the Ligue 1 table. PSG have a 10-point lead over second place Brestois, who could have made up ground but suffered that tough loss to Lens. Monaco is sitting third place, just 1 point behind Brestois now. Lille sitting fourth, tied with Lens on points, but ahead on goal difference. PSG have that huge lead, but plenty of European spots available, and also a big midweek matchup in the Coupe de France. Quarterfinal matchup for the French Cup this Wednesday, the 13th, between PSG and Nice. So now let me just be clear, when I mention these European spots that I'm referring to in the domestic league standings, these are qualifications for Champions League and Europa League. For example, Premier League, top 4 spots, that gets you qualification for the Champions League, as do the Bundesliga, Serie A, and the Liga. In France, the Ligue 1, only the top 3 spots get the Champions League qualification. But also in France, that 4th spot in the Liga, it goes to Europa League, while in those other leagues I mentioned, Premier League, La Liga, Bundesliga, Serie A, the 5th team in the league gets a Europa League spot. So that's what I'm referring to in those European positions, just in case you weren't aware. Quick mention of North American footy. MLS went down this past weekend. Some really fun matchups. I was able to catch some of the TFC Charlotte game. Scoreless game until the 80th minute. Toronto's high-priced star Lorenzo Insigne. He showed that he was worth the amount, unleashing a strike, putting a top corner, giving TFC the 1-0 lead and win, keeping them undefeated with John Herdman this season. Lionel Messi, I'm wearing his jersey here with Barca. He didn't suit up for Inter Miami, and they lost their first match of the season to an unbeaten Montreal squad. Leave footy, go to the hockey rink. Of course, the biggest news in the NHL has been all the moves leading up to the deadline. You got more moving pieces than a board game mousetrap with everything moving around. Everyone's saying the Vegas Golden Knights were probably the biggest winners at the deadline, getting Anthony Mantha from the Caps, Noah Nanafan from the Flames. They snagged longtime Shark Thomas Hertel. We mentioned him in episode 48. Biggest move of the deadline, some people's eyes, Jake Gensel getting moved from the Penguins to the Hurricanes as they go all in this season. They also acquired Evgeny Kuznetsov from the Washington Caps, and he had just entered the NHLPA Player Assistance Program only 36 days ago. Sounds like this change of scenery is just what Kuznetsov needs. Other teams looking at reinforcement, the Oilers getting Adam Henrique and Sam Carrick in a deal involving the Ducks and Lightning. The Jets snagged Tyler Toffoli from the Devils. Colorado grabbed Casey Middlestat from Buffalo. Sean Walker from my Flyers for a first-round pick and Ryan Johansson. The Sabres didn't stop their fire sale. They traded Eric Johnson to my Flyers for a fourth-round pick. They also moved their captain, Kyle Okposo, to the Panthers. The Panthers also acquired Vladimir Tarasenko from the Senators, so they're looking to make a good playoff run here. The Bruins brought in some veteran toughness, bringing in Pat Maroon from the Wild. He's still injured, but when he gets back, he'll give them something there. Little game of musical chairs, jersey sellers rubbing their hands together as new people go out to get new swag. We'll see what happens. It would be nice if they gave discounts for the teams, picking up players. I know they wouldn't because it's about money and paying these new players. But anyway, from the front office to the hockey actually being played, the Canucks have the best record in the Western Conference, 10-point lead in the division over the Oilers. They're on a 4-game winning streak too, doing their thing, beating some tough competition, knocking off the Kings in OT, the Golden Knights, and then blanking the Jets 5-0. The Canucks stayed relatively quiet at the deadline, and I don't blame them. They look pretty good, so why switch it up? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mentioned the Oilers. They look pretty good, minus that loss to the Blue Jackets and the shootout loss to the Sabres they suffered. Yikes. The Central Division continues to be a buzzsaw. The Stars on a 5-game winning streak, leading that division. Jets and Avalanche are right there nipping at their heels, especially the Avalanche, who are on a 3-game winning streak. Heading to the East in the Atlantic Division, the Florida Panthers have the most points in the NHL right now with a very slim lead atop the division and conference over the Boston Bruins. Bruins have slumped a bit, but have appeared to have turned things around, winners of 3 of their last 4, and their only loss being to the Oilers in OT, so that's not bad. The Maple Leafs look really good lately too, except games against the Bruins, which they seem to struggle, losing both of those 4-1. The Red Wings and Senators struggling. Detroit losers of 5 in a row. Ottawa losers of 7 straight. In the Metropolitan, the Rangers have a narrow lead over the Hurricanes, and they should be worried because Carolina's got those new guys coming in. My Flyers are 3rd in the division, just barely holding on, and it doesn't help that head coach John Tortorella was suspended 2 games, and Torts was also fined $50,000 for refusing to leave the bench after being assessed a game misconduct in the 7-0 beatdown by the Lightning. Patrick Waugh seems to have his Islanders clicking right now with an NHL current season high, or currently the longest streak in the NHL. It's 6 in a row. We'll go to our stats leaders. NHL stats leader, Colorado Avalanche, Nathan MacKinnon, leading the league with 111 points. Tampa Bay's Nikita Kucherov just 4 points behind him. Edmonton's Connor McDavid just 8 points back of the leader. Leading goal scorer, still Toronto's Austin Matthews, league leading 54 goals. Sam Reinhart second at 45, and Edmonton's Zach Hyman at 43. 2 new 40-goal scorers. Nathan MacKinnon and Boston's David Pastrnak are both at the 40-goal mark. Chicago's number 1 overall pick, Connor Bedard, still leading the rookies with 46 points. Also leading the rookies in goals with 19. And remember, this is still after he missed 14 games with a broken jaw. Amazing for the 18-year-old. Quick MLB mentions. I know spring training's still going on and regular season's still not starting for a few weeks, but some stories here. Is it true Canadian Joey Votto could play with the Blue Jays? Possibly. The Cincinnati Reds legend has signed a minor league deal with the Jays, at least for an invite to spring training. I hope he makes it. Just can pop in here and there, help the team, help the fans, bring people in. He is a legend. I think he should be a Hall of Famer. Some would say borderline. But what he did with Cincinnati over his time was amazing. And speaking of Cincinnati, infielder Noel V. Marte was suspended 80 games. The 22-year-old is tested positive for boldenone, a performance-enhancing substance, so we'll see what happens with that. Second race of the F1 season went down in a busy weekend in Saudi Arabia. There was a change to the driver lineup before the race. Ferrari's Carlos Sainz could not race due to an emergency trip to the hospital with appendicitis. He was replaced in the race by 18-year-old reserve driver Oliver Behrman, who'd be making his F1 debut. When the race went down, we'd have a very predictable result. After securing pole in qualifying, Max Verstappen would win the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, starting the season off with 2 straight victories, 9 in a row if you go back to last season, 19th and 20. So that's dominance right there. His Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez finished, 13 and a half seconds behind him for second. Ferrari's Charles Leclerc finished in third to round out the podium. He also earned the extra point for fastest lap. But the biggest talk of the race was probably Leclerc's teammate, Ollie Berman. As I mentioned, the 18-year-old's first race in F1, where he really held his own, finishing 7th in his debut. Other few highlights during the race, while me and my wife Caitlin were watching, was when Canadian Lance Stroll nailed the wall. He clipped his tire, so it was just locked, so he couldn't turn, and he drove in pretty hard. It was a hard collision. The team on the radio were like, "Hey, can you bring it back, Lance?" And in which he replied, "No, I'm in a fucking wall." So that was kind of funny. And also Team Haas, Kevin Magnussen, he's getting heralded for his Viking strength and standing tall with Team RB trying to get behind him and his Gandalf thou shalt not pass maneuvers, leading Nico Hulkenberg to secure the 10th spot and get a point for Team Haas. The memes of Magnussen and the Viking hat have been very appropriate for the Scandinavian, but it's not so funny the Team RB, who are not liking it, going to the FIA with complaints of unsportsmanlike driving by the Haas driver. So we're not going to have a race this weekend upcoming as they prep for the Australian Grand Prix the week after. Sticking in Saudi Arabia, there was a huge event spectacle the night before. We had some boxing going on in the heavyweight division. China's Big Bang Zhang took on Joseph Parker of New Zealand. The big man from China knocked Parker down on 2 different occasions. It looks like he barely throws any effort in, and his opponents crumble. The one commentator, he said it's like a touch of sleep, and that's really what it looks like. But despite that power, Zhang was throwing no punches. It was very confusing to me. It was confusing to the commentary. I didn't know what was happening really. I was like, was he tired? And during all this, Parker was working hard, trying to dodge those sleep punches and throwing as many as he could. So when they went to the judges and you look at the scorecard, Parker had better numbers and he won, winning the WBO interim heavyweight title along the way. And it was said after the fight that Zhang was just kind of frozen during the last third and thrown off by the stance. So Zhang congratulated Parker, but he said it was also, he triggered a rematch clause for another bout. So we'll see what happens with that. And this fight led into the match, the one everybody wanted to see. The big fight between Francis Ngannou and Anthony Joshua. So 2 chiseled beasts, right? 2 chiseled beasts ready to get it out there. And this was insane. This was a knockout here. Anthony Joshua reminded all of us that he is, one of the best boxers in the world, He came out, he did his thing, and it was just something else. He knocked Ngannou down. When a fighter takes it and his legs kind of buckle, that's how you know it's bad. And that's what Joshua did to Ngannou. It's unsaid what Ngannou will do now, but Anthony Joshua reminded him of what boxers can do. So it was really something else here. UFC, the last UFC event of the 200s went down in Florida, leading up to some main events. Michael Page would go the distance with Kevin Holland. The newcomer did enough to get the win in his UFC debut. And then in the co-main, Dustin Poirier showed why he's a lot of people's favorite fighter, showing great skill and power and knocking out Benoit Saint Denis. The other co-main featured Sugar Sean O'Malley going the distance with Marlon Chito Vera, dominating most of the fight and easily taking the win in the rematch he also wanted, retaining the bantamweight belt, the unanimous decision by the judges. And that brings us to college hoops here. We had a crazy filled week of men's college basketball. A lot of college conferences were wrapping up their seasons, while some conferences began tournament play. Duke wrapped up their season with a big win over NC State, followed by a tough loss to North Carolina. The Tar Heels throttled Notre Dame before beating the Blue Devils there. ACC tournament begins this week. One of my favorite leagues all season, the Big 12, wrapped up in regular season play with Houston destroying the Kansas Jayhawks by 30 points. Iowa State held on for a tight win over BYU, but would fall on the road to Kansas State. Baylor would follow up a home win over Texas by going on the road and losing to Texas Tech, who seems to be peaking at the right time. Winners of 3 in a row, Texas Tech going into their Big 12 tournament, which is also this week. That's going to be a wild tournament. I think anyone could win that one. Houston is the favorite and should be, but anyone could win the Big 12. And like I said, a lot of the smaller conferences, they have their semifinals and finals right now, while other conferences are starting their tournaments. Leagues like the America East, Southland Conference, Horizon League, Northeast, Big Sky, Summit League, they'll all be wrapping up here. So get your pencils, your papers, get your brackets ready, because it's coming. We'll go to the women's side here, because I gotta admit, the women's side, like, it's getting more excitement than the men's. And like this past week, it was a little different than the men's. I mentioned how the men's were wrapping up their regular seasons. On the women's side, they had their conference tournaments wrapping up. Some big games, like we have some games going on right now. The Big East final between Paige Becker's UConn taking on Georgetown. The Big 12 who have their semifinals today and their finals tomorrow. But then you have a lot of smaller conferences with their tournaments in full swing. But some classics you did have go down in some power conferences, like the SEC specifically. LSU didn't have too much trouble beating Ole Miss to punch their ticket to the final. But undefeated South Carolina, they were in a battle. They were down 2 points to Tennessee. Things were not looking good. South Carolina threw it into their big center, Camila Cardoso, hit her first career three-pointer off the backboard and in. Banked his open late. The buzzer beater gave South Carolina the 74-73 win over the Lady Vols. It was crazy. So we got the final we wanted to see. It was a classic. The game was getting wrapped up, though. South Carolina looked to have it, steal. And then they had a retaliation foul by Johnson. This caused South Carolina to get riled up and get in Johnson's face, who then got thrown to the ground by Cardoso. All 6'7" of her launched her, making Johnson's brother hop in from the stands, getting security and police that get him. So I don't know what happened with him. It was all kinds of shit. All benches cleared, and the rule is if you leave the bench, you get ejected. So there was 5-on-5 basketball to finish the game with everyone ejected. It was just craziness, straight up. Cardoso was disqualified for her push, which got her thrown out, deservedly so, which means she will be suspended for the first game of the NCAA tournament when that goes down. But after 20 minutes, this was all figured out. 5-on-5 ball. They finished it. South Carolina, another SEC title win. Coach Don Staley apologized after the game. Cardoso apologized. LSU fancy coach Kim Mulkey said she wishes Cardoso pushed Angel Reese and to see what's up. Try picking on someone her own size. The Big Ten, Caitlin Clark had a fucking really terrible first half as her Iowa team was down big to Nebraska, but she lit it up in the second half, forcing overtime and the extra frame, the all-time score in the NCAA history. Continued to light it up. Clark finished 34 points, 12 assists, 7 boards. Hannah Stelke, 25 points and 9 boards. She's going to be the big part here to see if Iowa has any chance of going deep in the NCAA tournament. When teams clamp on Clark, who's going to help? The ACC freshman phenom Hannah Del Doggo sparked her Notre Dame team with 4 players score 14 or more as they took out Virginia Tech. Hidalgo would then score 22 points, 6 boards, and 6 dimes. An amazing display in the ACC tournament final, upsetting North Carolina State and giving Notre Dame their first ACC tournament win since 2019. The Pac-12, you had more freshman magic. I mentioned this player as well as Hannah Hidalgo at the end of my NBA recaps, which you can find on my page. USC's Juju Watkins dropped 33 points and 10 boards, a double overtime win over rivals UCLA. Then in the Pac-12 final against number one Stanford, Stanford did everything they could to neutralize Watkins. She only finished with 9 points, but her teammates really stepped up. Mackenzie Forbes, 26 points as USC upset Stanford, and what was the last ever Pac-12 tournament game? Because we know that conference is folding. Other conference tournament finals, you had Richmond beating Rhode Island in the Atlantic 10, Chattanooga beating UNC Greensboro in the Southern Conference, and Presbyterian beating Radford in the Big South. Like I said, big games going on right now as I'm talking. What are you doing? So that brings us to the short. I wasn't sure where to go with this week's short. Like I mentioned earlier, very quickly, it's my birthday this week, so I have the day off. Watch some college hoops and taste the Champions League matches. Should be good, but most, birthdays come with reflection. I think one birthday that came up after a breakup, went out for dinner with friends, played it cool, forcing the portrayal of, wow, look how well he's doing after this breakup, while inside you're imploding, with every tick of the clock slowly eating away of you. So, of course, you counter those internal demons with alcohol. Fight demon with demon, pretending the booze is going to help you out. And this did not help. This brought me the motor skills of what would happen if you kicked Stephen Hawking out of his chair. I don't know. I figure after the Epstein shit, we can mention him a bit in more jokes. So my friends were trying to get this walrus of a man up in the parking lot of the Scuzz, a bar that no longer exists. Sutherland Bar, rest in peace. But while they're trying to get me off the ground, some good Samaritans saw, hey, I think they're roughing that fat fuck up. So they came over. As my helpful friends were trying to help me, these guys were trying to help me by helping them. And attacking them, fighting until they're like, whoa, we're all friends. We're helping his drunk ass out. So once it was figured out, and yes, they weren't trying to rob me and beat me up. They were, in fact, helping me. It was all good. Everybody was cool. I caused all this, but shit. And then inside, there was a girl from Austell checking me out, wondering how I was doing. And we'd end up talking later and dating, and that's now my wife, Caitlin. So, from laying in a parking lot to meeting a girl and ending up talking weeks later. I mean, it all eventually got there. It wasn't an immediate fighting in parking lot, laying drunk, passed out to that. But hey, you got to start somewhere, right? But hey, March Madness is around the bend. Next episode, the brackets will be set. Your pencils, get your pencil. Write it out, send it in, throw out some bets, see what you can do. This is a wild time of the year, full of madness. So thanks again for coming. This one got a little long. So shit. Thanks for tuning in. Lots of shit went down. All good stuff. Sports and shorts of sorts. Yours truly, Rencity. Rencity out.